Yep. Good morning, everyone. So last session we learned about some server objects. So how to use Node.js server objects. In that, today we will see how to use an HTTP object. Means today we will see how to creating a server. How do we create a server? So HTTP object can create server and it can manage the request and response. So actually HTTP object provides a method, the method for creating server. So that method is create server. That is the method. So by using this method, we can create a new server. And important, every server requires two basic objects. Can you tell what are those? So every server requires two basic objects. Server basic objects, two basic objects. What are those? Server basic objects. So we have a request and a response. These are the basic objects. Request and response objects. So whenever you create a server, so syntactically, create server actually uses a callback function. This function is going to manage two objects. One is request, another one response. And very important is purpose we know. Request object is used for request object is used to request data from client like data from where data will come from client query string. We have query strings. Data from client will come in the form of query string. Another is form body. You remembered we discussed form submits data to server on two requests. What are those? Get and post. On get request, if you submit, where data will be? Means what? Query string. URL means query string. If on post request, when you submit, where data will be? Form body, right? So we can request data from query string. We can request data from form body. We can request data from cookies. Because in cookie also data can be stored. We can access the data present in cookie. These are all request. And response object is used to send response to client. Like what kind of data you can send as a response? Client makes a request. What will be the server response type? So it can send HTML as response. It can send JSON as response. It can send XML as response. It can send file as response. These are all response type, right? So response can be any type. So it can be HTML, JSON, XML. What kind of response it is sending? So that means response type is defined as response header. It is defined as response header. Response header will tell what kind of response it is sending. When you are sending a response, you have to tell what type of response. Then only browser can understand. Because you know that browser cannot understand every content directly. To make the browser understand that we are sending CSS, what we do? To make the browser understand that we are sending CSS, what we do? We put the MIME types, na? MIME type like text slash CSS. If it is JavaScript, text slash JavaScript, like this. So whenever you are sending a response, you have to tell the response type. It's very important to tell what type of data you are sending as response. That is decided by whom? Response header. So server needs a response header. Through this response header, we will define the type of content. Okay. And not only that, header also contains a response header. Response header also specifies request code also. On which request code, what response it is sending, that is decided. That means generally on which request code response must be sent. There are so many request codes. On which request code response must be sent. So always the response is sent on 200 request code, which means OK. So OK, that means response is sent on request OK. Understood? That means server decides that the request is valid. How it will verify request is valid? Path and the URL that you mentioned. If request is valid, then server evaluates a number called 200. And if server evaluates 200, then it is ready to send a response. If a user is requesting something and it is not available, then server will evaluate a number called 404. Then it cannot send response. It will simply say that cannot found. So on which status code response is sent to client? What is the status code? 200. 200 means OK. Right? Yesterday I given status codes list. How to find status codes list? You try that program, then you will get the list of all status codes and their purpose. Now, while creating server, these all points are important. That means you have to create a server. You have to configure two objects, the request object and response. Then you have to need to define response type, what type of response it is. And if it is text, if it is HTML, you have to send that response. Generally, response is sent by using send method. Response is sent by using send method. Response type is decided by header. The final response is sent to client from server by using which method? Send. So send method will send response to the client. And after sending response ends by using end method. Every respond should end. After sending response, it should end. If it is not ending, it is still connected. If it is still connected, to perform another operation will be difficult. It says that already previous connection is open. Memory will overload and application becomes heavy because every response is not ending. If a response is not ending, the response still opened, then memory is occupied. That uses more memory, it delays the process, and it will not allocate space for another new task. Sometimes after memory is full, what it says, already many tasks are running, try again. Or it will say, close some responses, then another response can be sent. That's the reason after every response, it is better to end the response, right? Security wise also, it is good ending the response here. These are all important. Let's see how we can create a server. Now, one more point. Server is created. Server is configured with which response to send, and it is sending response. After that, response ends. Okay. But when server will start, you designed server, configured server, created server, but server need to start. Server need to start because you saw MongoDB. I showed you how to start MongoDB server. Of course, we are starting our live server also, na? Go live, right? When you say open with live server, what will happen? Open with live server means first server is starting. On which port number it is starting? 5500 port number. After starting, in that page will load, right? So server first start, need to start. Without starting server, you cannot access anything from server. And this process of starting server, so server is started by using listen method. Listen method. Generally, in general terms, we say server start, server started. But in technical terms, we say server listening. Server listening means it is started and it is now listening. Why it is called listening? Because it is listening means you make a request, it will respond. It will listen to your request and it will send a response. That is the word listen. Why server uses the word listen? Because it will listen to the request made by client. After listening to the request made by client, it will send a response. So response can be sent only when server starts listening. If server is not listening, you make any request, it will not respond. So to make the server respond, you need to make the server listen first. If server start listening, then it can respond. These all points are important. Let's see now how to do that. So we will how to create a server, we will see now. So first step here, we will create the server. Yeah, in this, yesterday we imported HTTP and we were just using some HTTP members, status codes, methods and all. So here, after creating HTTP, means after importing HTTP, we have to create a server. How? HTTP dot create server. We have create server method. This create server method uses a callback function. The callback function contains two objects. See, request, another one response. It is showing the help. Request is incoming message and response is outgoing message, right? So we have two objects, request object, another one response. Remember, these are parameters. Na? You write like a function. I am writing a expression. Lambda expression I am using, that I am using arrow method, right? It is a callback function with two parameters. Remember, parameter name can be anything, but first parameter is request. Second parameter is response. You can give A and B, you can give X and Z, anything. But the first parameter is request parameter. Second parameter is response. Right now, see here what we have to do. This is the request and the response. Now, first to send any response, you have to create a response header. I told you what is sent as a response. We have to create a header. How? We have to use response dot. We have an option called, so we have response header. So you see there is an header. So we have write head. We have an option write head. We have to write the response header. Write head is used to tell the response what type of response you are sending. In the write head, we have to define an object. Here you have to mention, actually here 2 points are there. See, first it is expecting status code. On which code what to send, right? Status code is, what is the status code? 200. On 200 code, what is the response to be sent? Type. Response type we have to define as an object. Just roughly, I am writing in next line for your clarity sake. Actually, it is written like this, right? So here we have to mention content type. Content type. Content type what? If you want to send HTML as response, then it will be text/HTML. That is how we have to define the head. First, you have to define head, and we have to write head. The write head contains what is the status code. On that status code, what is the content type you want to send as response. Okay, next, after that, you have to send a HTML as a response. That means we have to create response dot write method. We have a write. Response dot write method. What is the content you want to send? What is the type you mentioned? HTML type. That means here the content should be what type? HTML. That means I kept a markup heading. So welcome to Node.js. Like this we created. That is what we are sending as response. After sending the response, so we have to see, this is write. This is writing the response. After that, we have to send the response. Better what you do, you can use this in one sentence itself. Directly response dot what send. We can use response dot send. Actually, send is used for sending data. Sending data. But sending data means what kind of data? Every time you have to change the data types. So as of now, basically to send a response, what we have to use? Write. Okay. Initially we are writing write. Later we can use send option. Next level you will see that. Here after this, what happens? After that, response should end. That means response dot what end. That is done. Now server is created. Where it is created and where it is present. Server is created and it is present in the memory. A memory is allocated for server. In that memory, it is going to manage request and response. Now the doubt is, in a computer, can there be more than one server? Can a computer can manage multiple servers? Yes, you can. So in that case, in which memory this server is running? In which memory this server is running? Because there can be many servers. How to access the servers? So they need a reference name. So reference name, that means some constant or some constant and a reference name app is equal to that. That means now this server can be accessed with reference of app. You can give any name. Suppose I am giving as some name as node server, like this Mongo server, node server, anything you can give. I am giving node server under this name. This is stored. Okay, now the server is created. Currently, we are not using request object. We will use that later because we need to send something from client to use request object. So we are just asking the server to send a response. Response, what response? HTML. Right now, server is created, but how to start the server? Server should start listening. Na? That means node server dot, we have to use listen. We have to use listen. Now here in a computer, there are so many servers. In that case, every server uses a separate port number. All servers cannot be at one place, right? Every server runs in separate port number. So your wish, you can give any port number. In which port number server have to run. So listen on port number. It is expecting port number. Port number, your wish, you can give anything. Suppose I will give 4400. Earlier we are having 5500. Any port number you can give. Okay. After that, how server started internally? How to tell the status it started? We will put a message console.log. We will put server started and the list server started, where the details we will give. What is the server address? http://127.0.0.1, or you can use the word localhost. Our IP address is this. On this, what is the port number? 4400. That is the port number. This status is not required. If I don't give status, it is problem. How it knows? You have seen in our status bar, when you say open with live server, it will show server started and port number it will display is 5500. Status, if it is not displayed also, if you know the port number is 5500, you can access. If we don't know, we can't do anything. That's the reason it's good to show the status. Okay, done. Now let's run this and see. That means we need to start this program. Open the terminal. In integrated terminal, compile this now. What we have to do? Node, what is it? Index.js, and it says server started. Okay, now client have to request this from his browser, right? Let's open the browser. http:// what is it? 127.0.0.1 colon, what is it? 4400, and you see the response comes. That means server is sending a response. So which response? HTML. Now you have seen API servers, Fake Store API, NASA API. They were sending what? JSON as response. They were sending JSON as response, right? That depends on our requirement. That means now you see here, every time remember, if you are doing any modification, first terminate compilation, still server is running. If server is stopped, Control C, then server stops. If server is stopped, then again you refresh, it is not working anymore. It says cannot reach because server stopped. So you have to keep the server running. So let's start the server again. Node index.js, again server started. Now you can see refresh, now again it is working. So make sure that the server is running, right? Server should be running. If any accidentally, intentionally it is stopped, it will not work. You have seen MongoDB now. In MongoDB, I told you. So MongoDB server automatically starts. But if anybody stopped it, then MongoDB you cannot connect. We have to start the server. Where we went to services. In that right click and select start server. If server is stopped, you can't communicate. So this is server responding. This is an example for that. Right? So first I will give a syntax here. Syntax is, first we need HTTP dot create server. It uses a callback function. So this callback function will have request and a response object. And we have to write response dot write head. We have to create the write head. Status code is what? 200. And we have to define what is it? Content type. So we need to create just content type. So what type of content you are sending? Content type we have to define. So content type is text / HTML or some content type, MIME type. After that, so we have to give response dot what write, right? So your response, whatever your response is there, you have to send. After that, response dot what end. That is the option. And after that, just syntax I am giving. We have to use what? Listen. Listen on which port number, some port number. Right? That is, so here simply I'll say port. Right? That is the basic syntax we need. Example is this. This is not the example, right? That's all. Yeah, the example is this one. Let me copy this. So this is the example. I'm keeping that example here. Now you can send any response like that. You can send any response in that way. A JSON response or a file response, anything as a response. Let's see how to use a JSON response here. Remember, currently we are sending a standard response. Later, we will send response according to request. That means what client is asking. For that, we will send a response. Currently, we are sending a same response because he is requesting only server. In server, what he wants, he can request. That will come in the next level, right? Then we will send response according to his request. Right? Now here, what we do, next option. So here, we will define, terminate this, Control C. We will change here. Here we are changing. Content type, if you want to send JSON as response, then it should be application / JSON. You have to know the MIME type. So application / JSON is for JSON. MIME types actually where you can get in your computer, you will have a server. IIS, I told you in the beginning first. Local servers. In computer, you will have local server. You open in Windows, we have IIS, Internet Information Services. You open that server, then you will see in that server, there is MIME types category. Open the MIME types category. It will show the extension, it's MIME type. This is the MIME type we have to use. And what is the MIME type for JSON? You see the JSON MIME type is this, application/JSON, right? That means if you are sending JSON, then application JSON. That is okay. Now what we are doing here, let's go application JSON. Then this cannot be ordinary HTML. We can send a JSON format, but how to write a JSON format? We have to use a method. In JavaScript, we have a method JSON.stringify. JSON.stringify, it converts data into JSON. Because even if you write directly object, it is not default JSON. It is an object to be converted into JSON. So then we have to use what? JSON dot what? Stringify. Into that we need to pass the value. What is the value you want to send? Suppose I want to send here, so some name is some name like this, and we have some price, and price is some price. Or you can create separate JSON data and send it. Currently I am sending only this object, right? And it is done. Okay, now let's open, and here start the server. Server started, and request here and see. This time JSON will come. The response is coming in the form of JSON. If the type is mismatching, it will not work. That means MIME type must be correct, and the data type that you send also should be correct. It can be one object or multiple objects, you know, right? Now Control C, terminate. So here I can do one thing. So instead of this, okay, what we will do, we will create var data is an array, right? In that array we have to create object. Suppose name, so some TV, and we have price and some price. This is one object. Another object, so is name, some mobile, and here we have some price and some price, like this we define. Now this data we need to send, so we will just use the data. And again you need to compile this, started, and refresh, and the data is coming. The data is sent in JSON form. Now you know what to do, how to present this in the UI. We can use fetch, we can use jQuery as X. And now what is the URL? 127.0.1 and port number 4400. From here data is coming, you fetch and present. But actually here we hard coded the data. This data should come from database now. This is hard coding the data. This data should come from database. This data we created here, but actually this data is in database MongoDB. From there we need to get this data and send this data to client. So then now the question is how to communicate with MongoDB, get the data and send it. How we can manage that connection. This is the biggest part here. First I will copy this here. I will paste. This is JSON type. This is what type? HTML type. HTML type. This is JSON type. So what we are doing, we are creating a server, and through that server we are sending a response. But here response is a JSON data which you created here, but actually it will come from database. Now the question is how server connects with the database. That means connection with backend database. Connection with backend database. This is very important part. This is the major part in our technologies. That means how your server will connect with the database, get the data, and send the data to the user. First, we will see how connection will happen. Then we can send the data to the client, right? How connection happens with backend database. Let's see how the connection happens in the backend database. For that, remember Node.js can connect with any database in backend, any database in backend. Oracle, MySQL, or MongoDB, any database it can do. There are hundreds of data sources. For example, you see connectionstrings.com. This is actually connectionstrings.com. This is a website. If you go to this website, you will see it will show you the list of various databases in the world. That is complete list of database. Out of that, you know only 2 or 3. Right? In companies, they use different databases depending on requirements, situation. They use different database. Right? Why different types of databases? That depends on their abilities. Right? Some database have some good abilities, and for their project that is enough, then they will use that database. You can't force anybody to use specific database, right? You see, these are all different databases available, right? We have to use them. And to communicate with any database, actually what you need is to connect with any database in backend. You have to install their drivers in project. Any application can communicate with a database in the backend. For that, we need some drivers. They will take you to the database. A driver is responsible for connecting with any specific database. That means they drive to that particular database. That means target you can reach, you can communicate by using these drivers. Database drivers will be there. And Node.js requires these drivers. Every technology requires. So you have to set up these drivers, and drivers are not same for every database. For MongoDB, different drivers will be there. So for Oracle, different drivers will be there. You have to set up and install those drivers. Sometimes many databases work on only one driver, right? So there are so many driver names, ODBC drivers, OLEDB drivers, right? So that means we have drivers like ODBC. So open database connectivity, right? ODBC. So that is open database connectivity. So OLEDB, object linking and embedded database, object linking embedded database. So that is what database, right? Database is simple like this, DB. So you have so many drivers. These drivers are very important to communicate. So these drivers you need to set up and install, right? Actually, In every computer, you open control panel. In the control panel, where are there? Actually, you will find drivers. Administrative tools are there. I will search here. What is that? ODBC. Yeah, it is ODBC data sources. This is the driver. You can see these are all drivers. You can see in the computer, this is data source administration. You can see these are the drivers. SQL Server, MongoDB, different drivers will be there here. We can add, install, and set up these drivers. This much you don't need to do. This is all database administrators will do. You don't need to disturb these drivers or set up these. Just what you have to do is, so you have to install a library for MongoDB. You have to install a library for MongoDB that provides the drivers and methods to communicate with the MongoDB database. If you want to connect with Oracle, you have to install library for Oracle. Then it will set up the Oracle drivers and it will set up the methods which are required for communicating with Oracle. So how to install MongoDB library? npm install simple MongoDB and save. Remember, you are not installing MongoDB. MongoDB is already installed. It is the library required for connecting with MongoDB. Understood? This is not installing MongoDB. You are installing MongoDB library for communicating with its database. This is used by your server-side technologies. This is not installing MongoDB. So it is not installing MongoDB. It is installing library required for communicating with MongoDB. Similarly, for Oracle, we have npm install Oracle, npm install MySQL, npm install MS SQL, that is Microsoft SQL Server. We have, if you have any doubt in the installation of that library, you can go to nodejs.org. Official Node.js package manager site is there. There you type MongoDB, it will give you the installation related command, right? Now this is what you have to download first, right? Let's see. Let's go to the project. First important is database ready? First, server is ready now, MongoDB is ready. First we will verify, is it able to connect with MongoDB or not? Then we can connect with the database in MongoDB. First we will test the connection with server. After that we will test the connection with database. After that we can read the data from the collection present in database. Right? Let's see. First we will install. So let's go to the terminal. And here we are installing npm install MongoDB save. Now the MongoDB, once it is successfully installed, you have to import that library and write the logic to communicate with the database. Yeah, it is done successfully installed. Okay, close. Now we can write different programs. Huh? I will close this index. I will write another server side program called connection.js. So connection.js. Okay, let's here write. First, we have to import MongoDB module. So where Mongo client, I am giving Mongo client. Any name you can give Mongo client, because Mongo server, Mongo client, two libraries will be there. Two libraries will be there. One library is for server, another library is for client. Currently, you need which library? Client library or server library? Server library is not required for you now because already MongoDB is there now. What you are doing here? You are connecting to MongoDB. Who connects to MongoDB? Client, na? Client connects to MongoDB, which is present on server. When you need server library, if you want to manage server, managing server, shutdown server, starting server. If you want to manage any activity of server, then you need a server library. If you want to manage the database, and the table, because remember, you are connecting to MongoDB and we are accessing the data and providing to client. So we need which library? Client library. So is equal to require what? MongoDB. In MongoDB, we need Mongo client. That is the class. So MongoDB is a very big library. It have a lot of classes. In that, we need only client class, which allows you to connect with the database. You don't need other classes. That means we have to import this module. In that module, lot of classes are present. We need only one class. What is that class? Mongo client. This class allows for making connections to MongoDB. That class allows to connections for MongoDB. That is the reason we need that class, right? So in this module, there are so many classes. As of now, we need only the client class. Now, what is the reference for this? Mongo client. Okay. Now we have to connect with MongoDB. How? Mongo client can connect by using a method called connect. Connect with MongoDB. Here it is expecting the URL for connection. What is the MongoDB URL? MongoDB server address. MongoDB server address is what? MongoDB : /127.0.0.1:27017. Remember, I told you that this is the connection for connecting with MongoDB. Remember, every database connection is not same. Suppose you are using Oracle, then connection string will change. This is called connection string. Every database have a different connection string. To connect with the database, we have different connection strings. For example, if you are connecting with Oracle, in that Oracle connection string, what will be there? Observe this website I showed you, connectionstrings.com. Go to, where is it? Oracle. Yeah, here Oracle is there. I opened Oracle. So connect Oracle, I will select Oracle provider here. You see, to connect with Oracle, you see it requires so many things. These are all connection string related details. It is using so many options. That means it is asking provider, it is asking data source, it is asking user ID, it is asking password. That means for Oracle, connection string is different. For MySQL, connection string is different. So for MongoDB, connection string is different. And the connection string for MongoDB is a simple URL. And that is the URL you have to define. Okay. After defining the connection string, we have different techniques actually. Sometimes what we do, because this connection string is required many times, what we do is we maintain a separate variable called connection string. And in that we will put that reference. Understood? So in that we will put that there. Okay. So what is it? MongoDB colon 127.0.0.1 like this. And this connection string we use here. Anything is same. We can directly write the connection string, or we can put the connection string in a variable and we can use it here. Okay, now after connection string defined, there may be a problem in the connection. Sometimes server is down. Sometimes server is not responding even if it is up. Sometimes you disconnected suddenly. So then how to know what is the problem if there is a problem? This method will execute only when it is success. If there is a problem, then how to catch? For that, you have to use a callback function. Callback function I am writing like this. Understood? In this function, it is expecting. First, it is expecting error. It is expecting error. Error parameter. If there is a problem in connection, that problem will be stored inside this error. After that, if it is successful, then it will return a client object, another one, client object. So you are connecting with this connection string. If there is a problem in that connection string, means IP address wrong or server not responding something, that error it will store and you can report that error. If successful, then this object will invoke. What is the purpose of this object? It will connect with a database in that particular server. That means after connecting to server, in order to communicate with any database inside the server, you need another object. What is that object? That object is an client object. That means every connection have two parameters. One parameter is error. Another parameter is a client object. What is the responsibility of client object? After connection successful, to communicate with any database inside that connection, then this object is compulsory. That object is required. So one object for reporting, another object to go inside the connection and access the data. To communicate with the data or database, you need another object called client object. So here we will write a logic. If there is no error, then put a message temporarily console.log connection connected successfully. This message should come. Otherwise, if there is an error, then console.log, we have to put that error. Error will report everything. But if you want only specific, you can put error message. That means only message will come. Or you can put error like code. Only error code will come. If you put error, it will return both code as well as message. We want only message, then we can put only message. Initially, I will put all details. Okay. Now let's see here. Let's run this and see. We will later use this client object. This client object where we do if connection is successful, by using this client object, we communicate with any database in the MongoDB. So as of now, just error and success message we are doing. Let's run this and see. I will open this just for your understanding sake. I will open in a separate command prompt. You can run in terminal. Just for your visual sake, I am opening in a command prompt. Here what we have to do. So node, this time connection dot JS. And you will see it should say connected successfully. That means it is connecting with MongoDB server and it is successful. Let's try one thing. Open services. These are my computer services. And in these services, so let's go. Here, MongoDB. So this is MongoDB server. I will stop MongoDB server. That means MongoDB server is not running. I stopped it. Right after stopping, let's connect and see one more time. Connection.js. It is not connected now. Server stopped. Then it should report the error. It will take a little while because it has to get response from the server and it should report that error here. And you can see so many details about that error. What are the details about the error? So Mongo server selection error, connection refused. Connection refused from this IP address. Right? It is unable to connect. It reports all the problem. And more details about the problem. You can see so many details about the problem. These all are not required. Just we need to use message connection refuse. If it is started now, let's start the server. So MongoDB server is running, right? If MongoDB server is running, let's run this again. What is it? Node connection.js. And you can see success. So that is the basic technique. This is the basic of how we can communicate with the database. But here just we are testing connection. If connection is successful, then we have to go into the server and communicate with any database in the server. So first we will write this logic. This is after installing. Now we have an example connection.js. In that, this is the program we have to import. So you have to run node connection.js, right? First, we have to import Mongo client library. After that, we have to define a connection string. Through connect method, you can connect. So, and show the status, right? Let's see. Now, what is the database we are having? Let's go to MongoDB Compass. MongoDB Compass. You have a MongoDB Compass now. In this MongoDB Compass, so you can see this is the MongoDB Compass Connect. You have so many databases. Already we created some databases. Now I have an iShop DB database is there. So last session you submitted some databases also. iShop project I uploaded, na? Right? So you created those database. We will do one thing. We will take your database, right? Whatever you created, based on that, we will design a database here. After designing the database, now we need to communicate with the database. But from where the communication happens from client side, now we need to use combination. We have to use HTTP server and this Mongo library, because request will from client, then it will show the message to client, right? Let's combine that. Later we will work with database. How to combine this? Now this message I want to show in browser, not in command line. In the browser, I want to show him that you are connected, right? Then how do we do that? So see the point here. You need two libraries now. Where one is HTTP is equal to what? Require HTTP. After that, you need another. What is it? Mongo client. So what is it? Require. So MongoDB, in that which class? Mongo client class. Okay. Now we need to create a server. So how do we create the server? So where node server is equal to HTTP dot create server. In that we have request and response object. Now here we need to create. So what is it? Response dot write head. Am I right? Write head on 200. What is it? So we will send content type. Okay. Content type. Content type I will keep simple text slash HTML. As of now only HTML. After that response dot here we have to connect with database. Here we have to connect with the database. Connect with the database means what we have to do? Mongo client dot connect. Connect with URL. What is it? MongoDB colon double slash 127.0.0.1 colon 27017. And we use a callback function. It have error and it have an client object. Now what we have to do? If there is no error, we will say response dot write. We will put a heading saying that connected to MongoDB. This message should display. After that response dot write. Here I need to display response dot end. It should end the response. Otherwise, what should happen? Response dot write. I want to display here some code. We learned code now. So in the code, I am just keeping a font, and here I am defining color as red. And here what we do, so I will put a backtick. Okay. And we are displaying that font color red, and here we will display error dot message. That error message will come, right? After that, now this node server have to listen. What is it? Node server dot listen. Listen on which port number? 4400. So and console dot log, we will put a message server started. So HTTP colon double slash, you can use localhost 4400 because that IP address is related to localhost. You can use the word localhost or you can use this one also. Let's compile this and see. What is it? Node connection.js. It says server started. Now let's request from the browser HTTP colon double slash localhost. What is it? 4400. Then it should say connected to MongoDB. We are connecting from our client to MongoDB. So here, if there is a problem, That means there is a problem means services. So in services, let's keep that MongoDB server stopped. This MongoDB server is stopped. After MongoDB server is stopped, then we are reloading this page. Then when we are reloading the page, it will reconnect. If there is any issue in the connection, it should display that issue. You can see the message will come. It says that what? Connection refused, because we stopped it. Right now we will start the server here. What we will do? Start. After we started the server, okay, now we will request that again. So we will request this again. Now it says connected to MongoDB. Right, that's what we have to send. Here you might have observed, after this message, it stopped. But after this message, have you seen the page is still reloading? Have you observed? Why? Because response not ended. You have seen when error came, the page was still loading, reloading. Why? Because response not ended. So it's important to define response dot end after sending every response. Otherwise, it will be still processing your response. That is difficult. So this is combination now. From the client, we made a request, server is responding, we are displaying. Now what we have to do here, if there is no error, here we have to communicate with a database which is present inside MongoDB. In that database, we need to access data from a collection, and that collection we have to send in the format of JSON. That is what Fake Store is doing. Na? Fake Store, NASA API, what they are doing from browser, when you request their URL, they are returning data in the form of JSON. Now, this is the biggest challenge here now. Accessing data from table, returning the data into JSON. But we can easily handle that with the help of some commands here now, right? That we will see in next session, right? This is enough. First, you need to practice. So many things are important here. If you don't practice, you can't catch next class, right? Up to this, you need to be perfect first. Then I can go into next level, because it becomes very complicated if you don't do practice up to this. Okay. Tomorrow we will continue. In tomorrow's session, you will see finally data coming in the format of JSON, right? But this is not good way of communication. That is the reason we take help of another library called Express. Why it is not good way, I will tell you. Those reasons we will discuss, right? First, this example I will upload. This is an example for server and MongoDB. Both we are here, right? Then tomorrow we'll continue. Okay, bye.